Coming to you live from the Tino Studios in Minooka, Illinois. I'm your host, Bucky Shanks, and this is Tino Tonight. Tonight we jump into episode 3 of 5 of our 2020 season preview. We continue on with the Big 12 and we see if Oklahoma can repeat its dominance over this conference. Will Oklahoma State make the leap into the top half? Will anyone near the bottom make strides this year? Only time will tell, but let's get started. We begin our journey through the Big 12 in Manhattan. We check in with head coach Sean Hennessy and his Kansas State Wildcats. 2019 was a long year for this team. They started the year out 0-7 before beating TCU by 7 points in Week 8. They would get victory number 2 in Week 10 over Iowa State, but that was the end of the success for the regular season. The Wildcats ended the year 2-9 overall and 2-7 in the conference, 1-4 versus the top 25, 1-3 versus the top 10, and 0-1 versus the top 5. They did, however, land the biggest prize in the draft in quarterback Joe Burrow. Also arriving on campus this fall, wide receiver Justin Jefferson, linebacker Kenny Murray, linebacker Shaq Barrett, tight end Tyler Higbee, defensive end Yetur Gross-Matos, safety Jeremy Chin, defensive tackle Geno Atkins, and running back Keyshawn Vaughn. Looking ahead to the roster in 2020, at quarterback, they're led by Peyton Manning Trophy winner and first-team All-Tino Lamar Jackson. QB2 is true freshman Joe Burrow. Dwayne Haskins and Mitch Trubisky will be the backups. Verbal commitments were received from Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence. This group is going to be one of the best in the country in about 2 to 3 years. At running back, starters Joe Mixon and Mark Ingram lead the way. Melvin Gordon is the RB3 and Matt Breida slated for RB4 duties. The Wildcats got a slight bump this week when the Jaguars released Leonard Fournette. Raquel Armstead suddenly has value. A verbal commitment was received for Najee Harris, who will join this team next fall. At wide receiver, the Wildcats have some firepower. Starters Devontae Adams, Kenny Golladay, first-team All-Tino DeAndre Hopkins, and a hopefully healthy A.J. Green lead the way. True freshman Justin Jefferson looks to be a starter from day one. Also in this group is Deontay Johnson. Hunter Renfrow has gained more value with Tyrell Williams being lost for the season. Curtis Samuel, and last but certainly not least, Deebo Samuel, who will likely be starting once he is back from injury. Wide receiver George Pickens has also committed to Kansas State and should arrive on campus in 2022. At tight end, Tyler Higbee is the starter with TJ Hockenson, Cole Kmet, and Irv Smith Jr. backing up. The defensive tackle is not the strongest group in the world. The Wildcats will try and get by with veteran Geno Atkins and a handful of role players. Defensive end, another underwhelming group here and arguably one of the worst defensive lines in the country. Starters are listed as Shaq Lawson, Trent Murphy, Emmanuel Ogbah, and Olivier Vernon. The bright spot is incoming freshman Yetur Gross-Matos, who will likely have one of these starting spots by midseason. Linebacker newcomer Shaq Barrett immediately becomes the captain on defense. True freshman Kenneth Murray is slated to start as well in what was a recently bolstered linebacker group. Also new for 2020, Jordan Brooks, Neville Hewitt, and Logan Wilson. Whitney Merciless and Kyle Vanoy also slated to start, Bucky. Figure it out. At cornerback, Richard Sherman and Trey Flowers lead this group. Safety Taylor Rapp is currently listed as second string, but hands down this team's best option to start. Overall, this team is trending in the right direction. I think they need another year to add some more pieces, but they have a very nice core to build with. This team is going to surprise some people, but ultimately come up a little bit short. I think this team's upside for 2020 is one of the last bowl games. Next up on our list, we stop in Morgantown. We check out what's going on with Matt Dillon and his West Virginia Mountaineers. This team started 2019 2-2 after 4 weeks. Then the wheels came off the Mountaineers wagon. They would go on to drop the remaining 7 games of the season to finish up 2-9 overall and 2-7 in the conference. One of the wins was over a top 25 team as they went 1-3, but went 0-2 versus the top 10 and 0-1 versus the top 5. Chase Young, Antonio Gibson, Willie Gay, and Devin Duvernay headline the incoming class. Looking ahead to 2020, the quarterback, second-team All-Tino Matt Ryan, and offensive freshman of the year Kyler Murray are the starters. There is no number 3 on this team, so injuries will need to be avoided, and they will need others to do the heavy lifting on bye weeks. They did receive a verbal commitment from Trey Lance, however, so help is on the way next season. Saquon Barkley is the unquestioned starter at running back. Current Week 1 starters are also Boston Scott and Chris Thompson. Also in the running back room is Antonio Gibson and Zach Moss. With the recent news of Adrian Peterson being released, expect Gibson to find his way into the starting lineup. The wide receiver T.Y. Hilton, Adam Thielen, Robbie Anderson, Deshaun Jackson, and N'Keal Harry are the current starters. Devin Duvernay and Paris Campbell will both likely be starting at some point this season. At tight end, they employ a 4 tight end attack with first-team All-Tino Darren Waller, second-team All-Tino Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, and Jared Cook. Devin Asiasi and Josh Oliver are also on the roster. At defensive tackle, Warren Sapp Trophy winner and first-team All-Tino Aaron Donald, not Darren Arnold. Yeah, figure it out, Bucky. Aaron Donald and first-team All-Tino Grady Jarrett are nasty at defensive tackle. Defensive end, they've got true freshman Chase Young, who will anchor this line for the next 10 to 12 years. J.J. Watt and Brian Burns also starting. Ifedi Odenigbo was all set to start until the Vikings traded for Yannick Ngakoue. I'd expect Odenigbo to return to a rotational guy. That linebacker, second-team All-Tino Joe Schobert and Levante David lead an underrated group who also start recently released Todd Davis, Dre Greenlaw, Patrick Onuwasser, Jelani Tavai, and incoming freshman Willie Gay. Cornerbacks, an underwhelming group. Freshman Jeff Gladney was brought in to help. And at safety, Minkah Fitzpatrick leads the way. Overall, this is another one of those teams I think needs another draft or two. They need to bring in more talent at the running back, wide receiver, and cornerback positions, adding depth along the way at quarterback and safety. This team I expect to finish better than the 2-9 record from last season. Third stop on the Big 12 tour, we find ourselves in Stillwater. We take a look around and we see what Todd Husky and his Oklahoma State Cowboys have in store for us this season. But first, we check out how they fared last season. For the Cowboys, they scored over 1,000 points twice last season, and unfortunately for them, when they did that, the other team responded with 1,200 points. They were 3-3 after 6 weeks, but then lost out to finish the year. This put them at 3-8 overall and 2-7 in the conference, 1-3 in the top 25, 1-1 versus the top 10, and 0-1 versus the top 5. Some offensive firepower on the way to Stillwater this fall. Incoming class includes Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Henry Ruggs, Denzel Mims, KJ Hamler, Alan Lazard, and no significant losses for this group. At quarterback, looking ahead to 2020, led by Bucky's favorite player Russell Wilson, QB2 is Daniel Jones, Baker Mayfield likely opening the year as the number 3, and look for Drew Lock to break out this year and potentially start at times. At running back, Josh Jacobs, Freshman of the Year candidate Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Kareem Hunt, and Phillip Lindsay are the 1 through 4. Justin Jackson is listed as a starter, but I doubt that lasts for very long. Wide receiver, there's first-team All-Tino Chris Godwin and Jamison Crowder. They lead an unproven bunch. Other starters include Denzel Mims, Henry Ruggs, Alan Lazard, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. KJ Hamler and John Ross will likely figure in throughout the year. At tight end, Will Dissly is the current starter, Bucky. Figure it out. Gerald Everett and freshman Adam Troutman are the current backups. Defensive tackle, this is a major strength for this group. A nasty trio up front in second-team All-Tino DeForest Buckner, Kenny Clark, and Chris Jones. Jeffrey Simmons also slated to start Week 1. Ed Oliver and Christian Wilkins, currently the backups who would start for a lot of other teams in the country. At defensive end, another nasty trio led by first-team All-Tino Joey Bosa, Josh Allen, and Myles Garrett, who is back from suspension. Cleveland Farrell looks to take a step forward in 2020 as the 4th starter on this unit. A.J. Epinesa, Bradley Anae, Carl Nassib, Leonard Williams, and L.J. Collier are the backups. Another situation where these backups would be starting for a lot of other teams. The Cowboys might have the best defensive ends and tackles in the entire country. At linebacker, Corey Littleton, Fred Warner, and Matt Milano are the 1 through 3. Bradley Chubb is back from injury. Leighton Vander Esch will need to stay healthy, and this group is deep with options but very top-heavy. At corner, Jair Alexander and Byron Murphy lead the way, fresh off 400-point seasons. In safety, this is a productive group. Justin Simmons leads the way. Other starters are recently released Demarius Randall and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Terrell Edmonds, Xavier Woods, and Jared Wilson all put up 400 points last season. And overall, the Cowboys should improve on their 3-8 record. With a little luck in the high-scoring games, they would have been 5-6 and in a bowl game. I love the incoming pieces this fall. This team is trending in the right direction, and I see them being competitive all year long. The defensive tackle and defensive ends for this team are elite, and they can simply win you weeks. I have the Cowboys finishing in the middle of the pack, but if the incoming wide receivers perform well, that could bump them up a few spots when all is said and done. 4th stop on the tour, and we are in Lubbock, where we caught up with Texas Tech Red Raider head coach Matt Drago. The 2019 season was a bit of a roller coaster for this group. It was win 1, lose 1, win 3, lose 3. They were 4-1 after week 5. By the end of week 8, they were 4-4. They would be 6-5 at the end of the regular season and qualified for the Peach Bowl, where they would lose to Nebraska. Overall, they went 6-6 and 5-4 in the Big 12, 0-4 versus the top 25, 0-2 versus the top 10 and top 5. They did lose Eli Manning, C.J. Mosley, and Devin Funchess for the season, but key incoming pieces are DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor, and Jalen Rieger. Looking ahead to 2020, quarterback, their starters are Matthew Stafford and Cam Newton. Marcus Mariota is the QB3. Any injuries to Stafford or Cam, and the Red Raiders season is going up in flames. The running back, Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift joined the team after committing a year ago. Joshua Kelly and A.J. Dillon also enter the fold. Kerryon Johnson and recently released Adrian Peterson listed as the starters. At wide receiver, Mike Evans, Amari Cooper, and Odell Beckham will be every week starters. Jalen Rieger, T. Higgins, and Brandon Ayuk are incoming freshmen. Texas Tech will be looking for major improvements from J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and Corey Davis. Rondale Moore is verbally committed to Texas Tech as well. At tight end, Evan Ingram will be the opening day starter. Backing him up are Jordan Reed and Caden Smith. This is another position Texas Tech will have to avoid injury at all costs. At defensive tackle, Fletcher Cox leads an underwhelming group. Newcomers Adam and Vernon Butler are listed as the other starters. Defensive end Yannick Ngakoue will lead this group. Akeem Hicks, Carl Lawson, and Stephon Tuitt are the other starters. Linebacker Ray Lewis Trophy winner and second-team All-Tino Jordan Hicks, Devondre Campbell, Zach Cunningham, and Harold Landry all scored over 520 points. Rashaan Evans is also starting. This is a solid top 5 linebacker core. Jared Davis and Denzel Perriman round out this group. At cornerback, Kyle Fuller, Stephon Gilmore, and Marcus Peters all scored over 500 points last season. Peters is currently benched for reasons unknown. Denzel Ward and Carlton Davis are the other starters. Do-it-all safety Ed Reed Trophy winner and first-team All-Tino Eric Reed remains unsigned and would be a huge boost if he is back before the start of the season. The Red Raiders plan to do business without him and open up with Tyrann Mathieu, Jabril Peppers, Jaquiski Tartt, and newcomer Tracy Walker as the starters. Overall, I think this team takes a step back in 2020. One injury away from disaster at quarterback. Running back is rookie dependent, which is a big wild card. And the defensive tackles and ends are a weak spot. If the running backs all pan out, that could be a game changer for this season. But I will bet against it, and I have this team regressing in 2020. Find out where they land later tonight. TCU was too lazy to set a lineup, so we are going to move on. Participation goes a long way with Bucky Shanks. Fifth stop on the tour lands us in Waco, where we checked in with head coach Lanny Strong's Baylor Bears. Baylor had a back-and-forth year and could never really build up any momentum. They finished 6-6 overall and 4-5 in the Big 12. 1-2 versus the top 25, 0-1 versus the top 10 and top 5. When the regular season came to a close, Baylor found themselves with an invite to the Outback Bowl. They gladly accepted and would beat Mississippi State. They have a nice list of incoming players for this fall that include CeeDee Lamb, Justin Herbert, Laviska Shenault, DJ Reader, Patrick Queen, Michael Pittman, AJ Johnson, Javon Kinlaw, Chuck Clark, and Anthony McFarland. And the only significant loss is Will Fuller. Looking ahead to 2020 at quarterback, led by superstar Patrick Mahomes, QB2 is Josh Allen, Kirk Cousins and Ryan Tannehill are the backups, and Justin Herbert will learn behind one of the best in the world in Mahomes. That running back, thin group here with the 3 starters listed as Nick Chubb, Kenyon Drake, and Marlon Mack. Chuba Hubbard has committed to Baylor and will arrive on campus next fall. At wide receiver, the Bears are led by Jerry Rice Trophy winner and first-team All-Tino Michael Thomas. First and foremost, other starters include AJ and Marquise Brown, Brandon Cooks, Marvin Jones, Christian Kirk, true freshman CeeDee Lamb, and Terry McLaurin. Michael Pittman and Laviska Shenault are the current backups. At tight end, the Bears are going to start the year off with Jonnu Smith. This is likely going to be a revolving door, though, as nothing special looks to be in this group. Chris Herndon, O.J. Howard, unsigned Delaney Walker, and Kahale Waring round out the tight ends. At defensive tackle, this group is underrated. Incoming freshmen Javon Kinlaw and Neville Gallimore will help soon. Starters are listed as DJ Reader, who should be a mainstay up front, Mike Purcell, and Kawan Short. Jerry Tillery is also in this group. At defensive end, led by 2 of the better defensive ends in the country in Defensive Freshman of the Year Nick Bosa and Carlos Dunlap. Other starters include Jarrell Casey and Michael Brockers. At linebacker, starters Devin White and Shaq Thompson lead the way. The Bears spent 5 picks this offseason upgrading this unit. 3 of them are currently listed as starters in Patrick Queen, Nick Kwiatkowski, and A.J. Johnson. At cornerback, second-team All-Tino Marlon Humphrey is the number 1, followed by underrated Sean Murphy-Bunting, who scored at least 40 points in 4 of his last 6 games. This group looks to be down this year, but it won't be because of these two. At safety, this is the strength of the defense right here. Von Bell and Kevin Byard lead the way, followed by Chuck Clark, who not a lot of people know about yet, but will soon, as well as Bradley McDougald. Head coach Lanny Strong will receive some votes for the Ozzie Newsome Award. He had a very nice offseason. With the previously mentioned additions, running back and tight end could use some help, but everything else is strong and ready to go. I don't think this team is quite ready for the Oklahomas of the world, but if they get solid production from the incoming wide receivers and linebackers, this team can definitely make a run at the number 2 spot in the conference, as well as a potential playoff spot. We will find out later where I have Baylor finishing. 6th stop on the tour lands us in Austin. We check in with new head coach Mark Cambry. Texas went 6-6 last season and fired head coach Victor Swint after the Orange Bowl loss to Auburn. Mark Cambry was the hot name on the market, and he was the defensive coordinator for Mark Boland's Tennessee Volunteers. But he brings in a new class, and the incoming players include Tua Tagovailoa, Khaled Chasen, Tyler Johnson, Kevin King, and Russell Gage. But they also lost more than just about anybody when they lost Luke Kuechly, Tom Brady, Geno Atkins, Alec Ogletree, Preston Brown, and Michael Bennett. At quarterback, led by Jared Goff, QB2 is where things get interesting. Current QB2 is Ben Roethlisberger, who's returning from injury. If he returns to pre-injury form, then Texas will be fine. If Ben is not his old self, QB3 is currently Tua, and he doesn't look like he's going to be starting right away. Over at running back, starters are Le'Veon Bell, first-team All-Tino Leonard Fournette, David Johnson, Raheem Mostert, and Ronald Jones. A week ago, this was looking a lot better before Tampa picked up Fournette. Ronald Jones has lost all value at this point. The wide receivers, starters led by the most underrated player in the league, second-team All-Tino Keenan Allen, Jarvis Landry, Devontae Parker, Emmanuel Sanders, and Sterling Shepard. The Longhorns have a verbal commit from Rashad Bateman, and he will arrive on campus next season. Alshon Jeffrey is the best option off the bench, but currently injured. At tight end, current starters Rob Gronkowski and Hayden Hurst. Hunter Henry and Jimmy Graham should see time this year also. Defensive tackle Davin Godshaw and Ndamukong Suh will be locked into starting roles all year. The Longhorns suffered a blow losing Gerald McCoy for the season. At defensive end, Eric Armstead and Jason Pierre-Paul lead this unit. Dee Ford and Shelby Harris also listed as starters. At linebacker, Captain Darius Leonard, Khalil Mack, and Tahir Whitehead will be weekly starters. From there, it's going to be a mix and match the rest of the way until somebody steps up. Look for Clavon Chasen to snag one of these spots. At cornerback, Kevin King and Mike Hilton lead the way. Jalen Ramsey and Patrick Peterson will figure in at some point. At safety, the best position on this team, led by second-team All-Tino Jamal Adams, 400-point scorers Trey Boston, Kareem Jackson, and Marcus Williams. Jonathan Abram returns from injury. Incoming freshman Antoine Winfield Jr. has superstar written all over him. They also have often injured Derwin James, who when healthy is a flat-out beast. But he's never healthy and is already lost for this season. And after this season, when it comes to an end, Derwin James will have missed 27 of the Longhorns' last 32 games. And Texas is a little bit of a wild card. They have pieces in place that can do some damage. Ultimately, I think they are a little light on the defensive side of the ball, and that is going to be their downfall. A couple of years to let Coach Cambry get his players in here might be just what the doctor ordered. 7th stop on the tour brings us up to the Midwest as we stop in Ames. Head coach Steve Niezgoda's Iowa State Cyclones just missed the playoffs last year as the first team out as they finished the regular season ranked 17th. Iowa State finished 7-5 overall and 5-4 in the conference, 4-3 versus the top 25 and 0-1 versus the top 10. Ended up in the Sugar Bowl where they would lose to Vanderbilt. Incoming this fall is wide receiver Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver Will Fuller, wide receiver Steven Sims, quarterback Jordan Love, and cornerback Jeff Okudah. On the way out are DJ Reader and Telvin Smith. Looking ahead to 2020 at quarterback, Deshaun Watson leads the way of a solid trio. QB2 is Jimmy Garoppolo, backing up is Phillip Rivers. Jordan Love will hold the clipboard behind these three. At running back, Alvin Kamara, first-team All-Tino Austin Eckler, James Conner and David Montgomery are the starters. At wide receivers, second-team All-Tino Cooper Kupp, Michael Gallup, and Calvin Ridley are locked into the top three. Cyclone recruit Jerry Jeudy joins the group after committing last season. Often injured, Will Fuller will be in the wide receiver 5 to 6 conversation if his body allows it. Mike Williams will be competing for the wide receiver 5-6 slot as well if his body allows it. Steven Sims and Gray Tooth Larry Fitzgerald will factor in as well. At tight end, second-team All-Tino George Kittle and Austin Hooper will be every week starters. Blake Jarwin has some buzz from camp, but I'm just not crazy about him. Kyle Rudolph can be serviceable. Jay Sternberger is there, but he's on the Arcega-Whiteside side of things, minus the camp buzz. At defensive tackle, Jonathan Allen holds it down. Helping out will be Taven Bryant and Delvin Tomlinson. At defensive end, we've got an excellent trio in Calais Campbell, Max Crosby, and Frank Clark. Quinton Williams is the other starter. At linebacker, we have a solid core in Blake Martinez, Jamie Collins, Deion Jones, Eric Kendricks, and Anthony Hitchens. At cornerback, Deion Sanders trophy winner and first-team All-Tino Logan Ryan, who recently signed, will again be leading the charge. Also starting is true freshman Jeff Okuda. At safety, second-team All-Tino Landon Collins will be the leader of this group. Juan Thornhill and Keanu Neal look to be every week starters if health will allow it. The Cyclones I'm liking this year. The incoming wide receivers should all contribute, assuming Will Fuller's health. This team has the pieces to make a run at the Big 12 title game. George Kittle will help take the pressure off the receivers. Probably need one more defensive tackle and a couple corners, but overall, there's a lot to like here. This team is going about it the right way, and if the ball bounces their way, will find themselves in the field of 16 this year. The 8th stop on the tour puts us in Lawrence. We check in with Tyler Hopper and his Kansas Jayhawks. The Jayhawks were very fortunate to start the year. They would win their home opener by 2.25 over Colorado. They would go on the road week 2 to play Arkansas and would win by 1 point. 3.25 points the difference between 0-2 and 2-0. They would run their undefeated streak to 5. Of course they did, because all they did was win last year, which is why DJ Khaled got on board.
All I do is win, 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 no matter what.
Before losing in week 6 to Texas and week 7 to Oklahoma, Kansas would run off 4 more because
all I do is win, 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 no matter what.
Before losing in the Big 12 title game to Oklahoma yet again. Kansas would enter the playoffs as the 6th seed. They would open with the 11th seed Washington State Cougars and win by 16 to advance to the Elite 8. They would next face number 14 Washington. They would send home their second straight opponent from the state of Washington with a 30-point victory. In the Final Four, they would match up with number 2 Oregon, and karma would catch up with Kansas for the sins they committed in weeks 1 and 2. They would get a taste of that at the worst possible time as they lost by 1.1. Less than 2 points away from reaching the national championship and a third crack at Oklahoma. However, this season was a huge success for the Jayhawks. Kansas ended the year 11-4 overall and 7-3 in the Big 12. 4-3 versus the top 25, 2-3 versus the top 10, and 1-3 versus the top 5. They do lose Damian Williams for this season, but incoming for the fall is running back Cam Akers, defensive tackle Derek Brown, quarterback Jalen Hurts, wide receiver and Bucky favorite Van Jefferson, and defensive end Jordan Phillips. Looking ahead to 2020 at quarterback, Derek Carr is the unquestioned QB1. After that, it gets interesting. Tyrod Taylor is currently listed as the QB2 and will need to hold off Justin Herbert. Andy Dalton is now a backup. Nick Foles lost the battle to Trubisky, but I don't see Trubbs holding that job all year. Also in the mix is Jalen Hurts. This QB2 spot could be an issue and potential downfall for one of last year's Final Four teams. A small miracle would be made if Andrew Luck decided to unretire, as he's still enrolled at Kansas. At running back, what they lack at quarterback, they make up for right here. Starters Derrick Henry, second-team All-Tino Aaron Jones, Chris Carson, Miles Sanders, and commit since last year Cam Akers will be on the field week 1. At wide receiver, first-team All-Tino Julio Jones, Tyreek Hill, and second-team All-Tino Julian Edelman are the receivers 1, 2, and 3. Juju Smith-Schuster is the WR4, and we'll hope to have his health and his QB this season. Cole Beasley is the other starter for now. Bucky favorite Van Jefferson will have a starting job, possibly as early as week 1. And the Jayhawks picked up a verbal commit from Jalen Waddle. Antonio Brown is also still enrolled at Kansas. At tight end, we have a nasty duo in Tony Gonzalez Trophy winner and first-team All-Tino Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews, and that's about all you need at this position. Backing them up are Jack Doyle and Greg Olson. Defensive tackles Sheldon Richardson and Jaron Reed are the veteran leaders. True freshman Derek Brown also listed as a Week 1 starter. At defensive end, solid trio at the top of this group in Brandon Graham, Melvin Ingram, and Everson Griffin. Jadavian Clowney is also still enrolled. At linebacker, A-plus group here. Lawrence Taylor Trophy winner and first-team All-Tino TJ Watt, Bud Dupree, KJ Wright, Anthony Walker, Matt Judon, Anthony Barr, and Jayon Brown. Pick your poison from that group. And there is going to be plenty of weeks of big scores left on the bench. Nice problem to have. At cornerback, Joe Hayden is the unquestioned number 1 in this unit. Shaq Griffin, Charvarius Ward, Marshawn Lattimore, Xavier Howard, Chris Harris, and Bradley Roby will figure in behind Hayden. At safety, we've got 5 solid options here in Jesse Bates, Eddie Jackson, Malcolm Jenkins, Devin McCourty, and Justin Reed, and these 5 figure to rotate all year. Now look for Kansas to be one of the favorites again in the Big 12. Quarterback has the potential to be problematic, so they will need to dodge a bullet there, and the rest of the offense is very solid. The defense is solid across the board, and this team will be a tough out all year. They will have to figure out a way to conquer this problem called Oklahoma, but a return berth to the playoffs shouldn't be out of the question. We head to Norman as we check in with head coach and Bill Belichick Award winner Ken Gallan and the Oklahoma Sooners on our final stop of the Big 12 Tour. 2019 started off like it did for many others. Win the home opener and then go on the road and lose in Week 2. After Week 2, Oklahoma would go on a run that is so impressive we literally might never see it again. The Week 2 loss to Georgia, Oklahoma scored 906 points, their lowest point total on the season. From this point forward, they would not score less than 1,062 the rest of the regular season. They got a scare in Week 10 when the in-state showdown took place. Oklahoma State put up 1,200 points, but Oklahoma was up for the challenge and escaped with a 5-point victory. The Sooners would go on to face Kansas in the Big 12 title game and would beat them for a second time to claim the Big 12 title. Oklahoma would get through the conference with a clean 9-0 regular season record, and the Big 12 title would make it a perfect 10-0. The Sooners would enter the playoffs as the number 1 seed and wouldn't slow down one bit. They would take care of number 16 Michigan by over 130 points. In the Elite Eight, they would take care of Tennessee by over 140 points. And the Final Four lined them up against Wisconsin, and they would beat them by 70 points. In the national championship, we would see the 2 best teams in the country as the number 1 Oklahoma Sooners would face the number 2 ranked Oregon Ducks. This game would turn into a blowout as the Sooners would not be denied and they'd go duck hunting. With a 243-point win to claim the first ever national championship. 50 teams set out with this goal, and only one would hoist the trophy at the end of the year, and it was Bill Belichick winner Ken Gallan. Congrats once again to this group. This is by far one of the hardest leagues to win. You need so much to go right. Any little slip up at any point in the season changes everything. Overall, Oklahoma ended 2019 with a 15-1 record, 10-0 in the Big 12, a perfect 9-0 versus the top 25, 5-0 versus the top 10, and 3-0 versus the top 5. Simply does not get much better than that. Looking ahead to 2020, we will see what the defending champs have in store and if a repeat is possible. Key arrivals to Norman this fall include Tom Brady, Chase Claypool, Ashton Davis, A.J. Terrell, and linebacker Marcus Golden. At quarterback, newly acquired Tom Brady joins other veterans Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers. Starters are listed as Brady and Brees. At running back, Heisman Trophy winner, Walter Payton Trophy winner, and first-team All-Tino Christian McCaffrey look to carry the load for the Sooners again in 2020, followed by second-team All-Tino Dalvin Cook. Todd Gurley and James White round out the starters. Subtle a little addition in Frank Gore as well. At wide receiver, nothing elite at the moment here, but all high-floor guys. Second-team All-Tino DJ Moore is knocking on the door of being elite. I firmly believe DK Metcalf will be a top 10 wide receiver after this season for the next 7 or 8 years. Other starters include Tyler Boyd, Stephon Diggs, Robert Woods, and Darius Slayton. Incoming Chase Claypool should get his opportunity to start at some point this year as well. At tight end, the only weakness on the Sooners is this group right here. The starter is Eric Ebron. The bench consists of Cameron Brate, Foster Moreau, CJ Uzoma, and Jason Witten. At defensive tackle, starters Matt Leonidas and Lawrence Guy aren't starters you typically get excited about when you hear their names. But Leonidas scored 537 points last year, and Guy had 460. That puts both of them in the top 10 at the D-tackle position. At defensive end, starters second-team All-Tino Cameron Hayward and second-team All-Tino Cameron Jordan lead the way. Both scored over 650 last year. Trey Flowers and veteran Justin Houston round out the starters. At linebacker, it's an embarrassment of riches for Oklahoma. For most teams in the country, when you add a 538-point linebacker from the sub-draft, they likely slide in and start for you right away, right? Not for this squad. Starters are first-team All-Tino Chandler Jones, Bobby Wagner, Demario Davis, Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, and Von Miller. The 538-point linebacker that was added in, Marcus Golden, he's coming off the bench. At cornerback, first-team All-Tino Tre'Davious White is the shutdown corner. Second and third corners are James Bradbury and Chidobe Awuzie. Adoree Jackson is the final starter listed, and incoming freshman A.J. Terrell will come off the bench. At safety, Harrison Smith, Jordan Poyer, and Adrian Amos form a very capable trio, and Bucky favorite Ashton Davis is the one to watch in this secondary for the future. Overall, the Sooners don't look to be slowing down. The only weakness on paper is at tight end, and the quarterbacks, they're all older, so the window for this team might not be open for too much longer. But this team is run by one of the best front offices in the game. Barring this team getting hit by the injury bug, I fully expect this team to repeat as Big 12 champs. We finish up with the predictions for this season. Tusson's picks, as always, on the left. Bucky's picks on the right. I have a repeat of the Big 12 title game. Oklahoma is just too good top to bottom. I have them repeating over Kansas. In third is my dark horse Baylor. Fourth, I have Iowa State, who I like a lot this year. Fifth is Oklahoma State, who can easily move up or down a couple spots. Sixth is West Virginia, who should improve from last season. Seventh is Kansas State, who I think this year marks the year of progress for the Wildcats. With another draft, they should be able to jump higher for next year. 8, 9, and 10, I have all three Texas schools, TCU, Texas, and Texas Tech. Dark horse, I have Baylor, and falling off, I have Texas Tech. And that'll do it for the 2020 Big 12 preview and predictions for everyone here at Tino Studios. Good night, everybody.